I'm going to talk about circles, okay? Let me start by specifying what a circle is. A circle is the set of points, a certain specified distance from a certain specified point. All right, so for example, suppose you wanted the set of points that were all a certain distance from the point denoted by the blue dot I've just drawn. Okay, what would that look like? So let me draw an example of a circle. Okay, so I've colored the set of points in black that are all the same distance from that blue dot as the length of this purple line segment. Okay, if you take a ruler and measure the distance from that blue dot to any point on that black closed curve, you'll see that it's the same. All right? So that's the definition of a circle. Now, the line segment that I drew, okay, line segments that go from a point on the circle to the center of the circle, okay, those line segments are referred to as radii, or the singular is radius. Okay? Now, people will use the word radius to denote a line segment as well as the length of a line segment. So the length of that purple line segment people will refer to as the radius, but they'll also refer to the line segment itself as the radius. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right. Another line segment that is important with respect to circles is the following. A line segment with endpoints on the circle that also goes through the center of the circle. Okay, so that green line segment is what I'm talking about. Okay, now that line segment and other line segments like it are referred to as diameters. Okay, now let me quickly mention that you will hear people refer to the length of segments like that green line segment as the diameter, but they'll also refer to that green line segment itself as a diameter. All right, so again, keep that in mind. Now, what does it mean to say that two circles are congruent? Let's talk about that. So remember that two figures are congruent if they have the same size and the same shape. All right. So if two figures are circles, then they have the same shape. How can we determine if they have the same size? Well, with a little bit of thought, you might see that if two circles have the same radius, then they might be congruent. And if you thought that, then you would be correct. Okay, so let me specify that. Two circles are congruent if they have the same radius. All right? Now, let me make one more comment about circles. So, if you define an angle with its vertex at the center of a circle, all right? So I've just denoted an angle with two red line segments, okay? Such angles with vertices at the centers of circles, those types of angles are referred to as central angles. Okay? So I've given you three terms with respect to circles, in addition to defining what a circle is. And I've also told you how to determine when two circles are congruent. Now, what do you think the center angle measure is if it contains 25% of the circle inside the angle? Okay? Can you see that if a central angle corresponds to 25% of a circle, that it's a 90-degree angle? Okay, what about if a central angle corresponds to a diameter? Can you see that a diameter corresponds to half of a circle? Okay, and therefore that a central angle that is with respect to a diameter has a measure of 180 degrees. Okay, and then lastly, a central angle that corresponds to an entire circle has a measure of 360 degrees. All right, now let's do an exercise involving central angles. Give me a moment to make a picture. All right, so I've drawn a picture of a circle, and O is the center of the circle. All right, and also AB is a diameter of the circle. And then I've also drawn a central angle AOC, and I've specified the measure of that central angle to be 75 degrees. All right, so with that, can we determine the measure of the central angle COB? Okay, so remember that a central angle corresponding to a diameter has a measure of 180 degrees. Can you see that the measure of angle COB is going to be 180 degrees minus 75 degrees? So, in other words, 105 degrees. Now, what about the measure of angle BOC? Now, there's an ambiguity. You can actually define two central angles as BOC. So I want to be clear. I'm focusing on the central angle that includes the point D. Okay? Now, so the angle COB can also be interpreted as a different central angle. Okay, so when I first BOC, I'm not referring to the angle that I just determined the measure of. I'm actually thinking of the central angle that includes all the rest of the circle, except for that 105 degree angle. Okay, so if you understood what I just said, then let's discuss how we would find the measure of everything else but the angle that we were just discussing. So that the angle BOC that contains point D in the opening includes a central angle with a measure of 180 degrees, plus it includes another angle with a measure of 75 degrees. So therefore, the measure of BOC, that the version that contains point D in the opening, is 180 degrees plus 75 degrees, which is 255 degrees. Another way you could have calculated that is, you know that the central angle associated with the entire circle is 360 degrees. Okay, and I said that BOC was everything else but the first angle that I found the measure of. So you could have also calculated 360 degrees minus 105 degrees. That would have also given you the same answer. All right, now what about the measure of angle BOA? Now, once again, this could denote two different central angles, but they both correspond to a diameter, so regardless of which one of those you focus on, you will get the measure of 180 degrees. All right? Now, I hope that made sense. Now let's have you do an example, an exercise. So, as before, give me a minute to draw a circle. And let me draw some other elements with respect to that circle. Okay, I've drawn a circle with point O as the center. And I've also drawn a diameter. AC is a diameter. And I've identified the measures of two central angles. All right. Can you determine the following central angles as well? The measure of angle BOC, and I'm referring to the small central angle that can be interpreted. The smallest one that can be interpreted as angle BOC. Okay, the measure also of angle AOC, can you determine that? And the measure of angle DOA. And again, focus on the smallest central angle that can be referred to as angle DOA. And then BOD, the smallest central angle that can be referred to as BOD. Okay, so pause the video if you have to and try to determine the measures of all those central angles, please. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do it as well. So BOC is 180 degrees minus 89 degrees. So 91 degrees. Okay. AOC is a central angle corresponding to a diameter. So 180 degrees is the measure of that central angle. DOA is 180 degrees minus 42 degrees. That's the measure of that angle, I mean. So that's 138 degrees. And BOD is the measure of angle BOC, which we just calculated, plus 42 degrees. So 133 degrees. All right.